My grandfather, he rode Harley Davidsons as well. You know, I saw these amazing pictures of him standing in between these two really old Harley Davidsons. I think they were circa late 30s, early 40s. They got on these bikes and they rode from farm to farm in Alberta where they were growing up. And that was their transport. And I've got all these romantic visions in my head of what it must have been like back in those days to be kind of on that pioneering edge, using these new machines to get you about when you're, you know, the last thing you had to transport yourself with would have been a horse. And then to get on this amazing, you know, new Harley Davidson it would have been back then must have been such an exciting feeling and such a feeling of freedom. My name is Mike Gilbert. I'm 45 years old. 2 years ago, I was not feeling very well, went to see the doctor, and long story short, I ended up being diagnosed with stage 4 colorectal cancer. Our business that we had come to New Zealand and established and spent 3 years building was just taking off and doing very well. And then this hit, and then of course, the global pandemic situation hit at the same time as well. So that was just devastating. So this trip, possibly, you know, my body, it's getting a bit frail. This could quite possibly be the last ride. Day one was quite interesting because I was quite nervous in the morning with the condition of like the tumor and the metastasis in my hip. It's quite sensitive, and I wasn't sure how much that would take or if I could even make the edge of town. So this is my original jacket that I used on my first trip across Australia. So this little patch from my grandfather's Special Forces unit on there. Just on there for good luck and that type of stuff. First ever ride on a Harley. This should be fun. Very exciting day for me. Okay, we're up to highway speed for the first time. Oh yeah, pull up in front of me. Great. Lots of power. Yeah, the engine loves to pull. It's got so much torque. 10-15 minutes under it. Been through some tight corners. Everything seems really good. It's very planted, very easy to ride bike. Oh, someone in trouble. Oh, you can smell all those flowers. Wow. Just taking it easy. Lots and lots of police out looking to ruin people's days, so we'll just stick to the speed limits, as I always do. Wink, wink. A bit of an interesting trip down to Kaikoura. We had quite a bit of traffic. There was a holiday weekend, and so everybody was on the road and the construction was delaying everyone. And I ended up sandwiched between a large trailer truck and a police officer. Few things less exciting than riding behind a police officer in a transport truck in a construction zone. Good thing the wind is howling to keep me on my toes, otherwise I'd fall asleep. And so even though it was completely legal, when I finally got the chance to pass the truck in front of me, I got my first experience of being pulled over on a Harley Davidson for no reason at all. Alright, so in my rearview mirror there, you can probably see that nice police officer that just pulled me over to have a little chat. He wasn't super impressed with the pass I made, but I pointed out that it was completely legal and didn't go over the speed limit and everyone was safe. And yeah, he just didn't do anything. He just stopped me for absolutely no reason. Oh man, you can really smell the ocean now. It was just a beautiful, beautiful ride down, looking at the amazing colors of the ocean and then the seals and all the wildlife there, and just that beautiful greenery in the mountains as you get closer to Kaikoura. So growing up, my first kind of activity that I got into with motorcycles was motocross racing. So I spent a lot of time doing that. And then after that, I think I had a sport bike, and then I had a little Royal Enfield in Dubai. And of course rode scooters and motorcycles in other parts of the world. Harley Davidson had never really been a brand that was on my radar. You know, I had this impression that it was, you know, it was the brand for the outsiders that lived kind of on the edge. And what changed that was I was actually out kind of capturing content and doing this tour as Dead Men Riding. And I was on this big kind of winding road through the trees, and there was this group of Harley riders behind me. And as they went past, you know, I was looking at them, and they were these just basic kind of chopped up bikes from the 80s, and they were just minimalist, and they had the bedrolls on the front and the open face helmets. And there I am, I got my adventure helmet, and I'm all geared up and all of that, which is excellent. But I was watching these guys, and they were going past, and I just thought the basicness and the rawness of that and the sound of the bikes. And I think that was the first time where it really hit me. I was like, you know what, that looks pretty interesting. You know, I think maybe there's something in there for me. I started kind of learning more and getting a better understanding of the brand. And then, you know, coincidentally, the Pan America came out, and you know, one thing led to another, and here I am. I'm sitting here with this amazing new motorcycle with a brand that's not really known for adventure bikes. I'm really excited to go and have this first experience with the Harley brand, because it's something that I have deep in my blood, back in my family, that has taken me this long to actually get on board and experience that. So what I'm looking forward to is kind of just riding and just getting on the bike and being free, which I don't get that feeling a lot anymore, because it's a lot of you know, kind of stuck at home. My physical ability doesn't let me get out and do a lot of things. So this is it's a chance to really leave the world behind, engage with something new, and it's going to be it's going to be a bit subdued because you know, of my physical condition, but I'm looking forward to just seeing these places again. I want to use motorcycles as a tool for healing and enjoyment for myself, and as a way to communicate to others that there's hope, and not to give up just because your doctor says you're dying, or because it's not normal for a cancer patient to ride a motorcycle. I'd have to say that motorcycles became less of a tool in a business, and they became more of a personal item for me, and a personal way of expression, if that makes sense. quite a joyful feeling when we got close to Kaikoura and we stopped at a little surf spot. And there was all these beautiful yellow lupins everywhere. And it was just a moody sky in the background and mountains. And we just got such amazing pictures. And it was just a beautiful place just to be and sit spiritually. Look at those mountains. It's amazing. It was such a nice, calm, interesting end to the day that set off with me being quite nervous. All right, made it to Kaikoura. What an amazing day of just getting on a bike for the first time in so long and just having it be such a special bike. It is time to find my hotel, and very shortly after that, an ice cold beer. As we rolled into the hotel, I was tired, but I was so happy that I had actually accomplished a one-day ride, which I wasn't even sure I could do anymore. Done. Purpose for me, what gives me purpose, to get up in the morning and keep going, it has to be my family. They're just such a positive force in my life. I just can't fathom them not being there, or not having them to rely on. It's what keeps me going. It keeps me fighting. When there's new medicines that to take that aren't going to make me feel good, I push through that because I want to spend as much time as I can with my family. So there's wonderful things I get to do, like riding motorcycles, and those are kind of around the periphery, really. And what's at the core of me is Ace and Sam. Everything else is luxury. Ace is my son. He's obviously the light of my life. He was born in Dubai on January 11th at 11 a.m. in the morning. So he's got the name Ace, and then these cool, 111, all these ones in his life. He's got such a kind heart. He's so empathetic with animals and people, and he feels everything very, very deeply. And at the same time, he's fun, and he's just been a blast to be around as he grows up. He traveled the world with us when he was 1.5 years old. I think he was 3 months old when he went on a plane to Mauritius. He's growing so fast, and it's such a joy to be his dad because he is such a good kid. And he's made me a better person, much like his mom Sam has. I shudder to think what my life would be like if I hadn't had both of them come into my life. On day 2, I woke up expecting to have quite a bit of pain and swelling and not really know how long it would take to get ready for riding. But I actually had to walk around the room a couple of times because I couldn't believe how good I felt. I was feeling really good, lots of energy, very upbeat. So I'm really looking forward to today, even though it might be a bit rainy. It's going to be fun. Felt amazing. I felt kind of limbered up and loose and energized. And I was ready to go, quite early.
Monkey cannonball!
Monkey's seen some hard days.
Hey!
Try not to throw in the life ground, dude.
Hey!
All right, setting out on day 2. It's a bit gloomy. Looks like we might get into a bit of rain, but hey, that's what it's all about. So that's why they call it adventure riding. Get out there and just take what comes. The route we took was just kind of out of Kaikoura and then up what they call the inland road. beautiful little B road, not much traffic on it, so we should have a lot of fun. Looking forward to it. It's one of my favorite bits of road in the country. It's a little bit rough. It's got some parts that need repair, but lots of ups and downs and corners, and it's just a good time. Let's do this. And the rain started pouring down, so I'm all geared up in my wet weather gear. I just noticed I forgot to close my sleeves. That'll be interesting. Alright, let's pop that up a little bit, see if we can get a bit of protection. Gotta pop those hand warmers on, there we go. That'll help keep my hands nice and warm and dry. Oh yeah! Got a little heavy metal on the headset. Let's go find some trouble. New Zealand has always been one of the places we wanted to visit, and we went on a bit of a world tour after deciding to leave the corporate life in Dubai. We spent time in Europe, South Africa, and we came to New Zealand, and we rented a caravan and we just kind of drove around the South Island and we fell in love with it. Put together a bit of a business plan that we wanted to do, which was helping people get out and have amazing experiences that like we had during our time traveling. And New Zealand just fit the bill. It was a nice place to raise our son, and it just looked like an amazing place to set up our motorcycle business. Adventure riding wasn't one of the things that I envisioned for the business that we started here. We started with road bikes, and I think what changed that was a ride across Australia with this guy who was aiming to be the youngest person around the world on a motorcycle. His name was Henry Crew, and he does hold the world record for the youngest person to ride around the world. And we ended up doing some off-road riding, and that took me to these amazing places and sparked that passion inside of me that I used to have when I raced motocross. The most beautiful, the most amazing terrain and places here in New Zealand are off the beaten path. So I wanted to integrate that into the business. So we started looking at adventure bikes, and I bought the first one, and then there was two, and I think we ended up with 18 or 19 at the end. It allowed our customers and it allowed me to go off on these amazing trails and roads that you wouldn't normally see, and getting into the unknown and that feeling of discovery that you get, that you can only get once you get off the beaten path. The weather was against us. We had rain and heavy rain and light rain and all sorts of it throughout the day, but the road itself is just amazing, like these beautiful sweeping corners and hills and switchbacks. It offered actually quite a few opportunities for some really good testing of the bike. So I was riding it in rain mode and checking out the suspension and the tires and the handling in wet conditions. And again, it was just such an ease to ride and comfortable and fun, even in the rain. Just had a blast going down this road. The contrast from the day before of having to wait for traffic and police and cars everywhere to this, where there was nobody on the road, and it was just this amazing ride through the countryside, this beautiful countryside on this moody day. It was such a fun thing to do. As I was coming into the Hanmer area, the sun broke out in the valley and the hills were green and the skies were blue. And I got to put the bike in sport mode and just really enjoy some kind of longer sweeping corners. It was just like a Hanmer Spring saying, welcome, come on back, we'll treat you right. I rode in here with the sun shining. I was so happy. A lot of joy brought back into my heart then, and a real feeling of accomplishment of another full day's riding done on what felt like a machine I'd been on forever. And it's only my second day on it. Feeling good and feeling healthy. A little bit tired out, of course. It's a lot of activity in 2 days that I wasn't used to. And just went and sat in the sunshine and treated myself to a big beer, and just kind of reflected on the day. And it was just such a wonderful day of riding and such a great experience. We're headed off-road tomorrow morning, so I'm a little bit nervous on that. My legs held up pretty good, and I think it'll be strong enough. So we'll lower the tire pressure down, we'll put it in off-road mode, just see where it takes us. My first ever experience on a motorcycle was, it was funny. It was on our farm in our yard on the lawn. And these neighbors brought over this little homemade deal. It looked like a couple of wheelbarrow tires, a lawnmower engine in the middle, and a little steel frame and a homemade seat on it. It had a pull start. The other kids were riding around on it. And I looked at that and I said, that looks like a lot of fun. And I remember getting on it and riding across the lawn and giving it everything it had. And that feeling of balancing and not pedaling and having that power, and it was completely lame. But that was what sparked the fire. I was like, this is something I need to get into. To pick the best experience, or one of the top ones for me, was actually on a road near Queenstown. And I had finished going through this back mountain pass on my big adventure bike, and I was kind of in between chemotherapy sessions, and I was out trying to prove that I could do things. And I had mastered this pass I went through. I didn't drop the bike, everything went well. I got hailed on and snowed on and rain and sun, and it was just this day where everything was kind of thrown at me to keep me from making it through this pass, and I made it. And that even wasn't the moment. The moment was after that. I was riding back into Queenstown for the night, and it was on this sealed road, and the sun came out of the clouds, and the bike was running perfectly. I had it in sport mode, and the tires were sticky. And I started kind of winding along the side of the water. I had the rocks there, and it just gave me this feeling like I had been transported to, somewhere in Italy on the Amalfi Coast or something like that. Yeah, it was such a beautiful experience. I'll never forget that. And there was nobody in front of me, and I just had the road to myself, which was unusual as well. It was just one of those perfect moments that I was talking about. And yeah, that was a good one. The feeling you get when you're on a bike, it's working well, your tires are good, you get to this beautiful road, and there's these times when you're on motorcycles where everything just clicks and everything starts working together, and it's just perfection. The feeling it's amazing because you're connected with the bike, you're connected with the road, the sky, the smells that are coming through your helmet with the trees and the water, wherever you're riding. And the best way I can describe it is it feels like flying. You can feel the forces of the bike as you go around the corners, but it's a weightlessness that you feel. You feel like it's almost a feeling of invincibility when everything clicks. And I think a lot of riders will understand that. They'll know that, because it's not like that every moment that you're on the motorcycle, but when things are just perfect, and like I said, the temperature's right, the tires are right, the bike's running clean and well, those moments just stick in your mind, and it's just something that stays with you. So day 3, I woke up feeling okay, a little bit slow, but through the process of getting the gear on, getting the bike ready, and sorting it out with changing the tire pressures, because it was going to be kind of an off-road gravel riding day. Okay, just dropping the pressure on the tires before we go off-road. I was running 34 psi. We'll try to get it down around 25 here. So I think we're not going to do any hardcore off-roading. I don't want to get them too low. was to ride out to a place called Lake Tennyson and take another route on the way back. Sun was out when we took off, so of course I was dressed in all the gear that you would ride on a sunny day, so nothing waterproof at all. I was quite nervous how I was going to handle being on a loose surface again with my hip the way it is, and a bike that I hadn't ridden on loose surfaces before. So switched it into off-road mode. The bike just was fine, it was amazing. The riding mode was quite good with the throttle response and the suspension and everything. I think maybe it took me a couple of kilometers just to get the feel for it, and then I was off. My grandfather, he was a pretty amazing man. My relationship with him was pretty typical. You're a young kid, everyone's old, but he was always an outdoorsman. He was a hunter. He did amazing things, difficult things in World War II. He was a bit of a Renaissance man. He had all these talents and skills. And unfortunately, I would say when I was younger, I didn't really appreciate or get to spend much time with him. They lived, 10 or 12 hours away. And when I became a teenager, I was, of course, arrogant. I knew everything, and grandparents were boring. And it probably wasn't until his later years, in his 90s, and he went into the hundreds as well, that I really began to appreciate what an amazing individual he was and what a life he led. I really began to appreciate and understand what a strong and good man he was. Whenever I'm in a hard situation, I look back and I think about him. And, he went through the dirty 30s, the Depression. He made it through a war in a special forces unit, the first one in history. His unit, they never lost a battle, and so he was a fighter, and he never gave up. And I've got a little coin that I carry in my backpack and in my sleeve of my jacket when I'm out riding, and it's a coin of his military unit, and that just kind of keeps me grounded and lets me refocus and continue to be strong and kind of push forward on the journey, whatever that journey is I'm doing that day. The rain caught up to us again, so on with the wet weather gear. Man, did it rain on us for a while. We were just getting poured on, and it was kind of like the day before, where it was just, I'm dry, the bike's working well, and we just powered through. Oh man, the weather's turning nasty, but I got my hand warmers on, I'm comfy, the wind is going around me beautifully. Might not sound like it, but it is. I'm a happy guy. Just taking a moment. I couldn't think, even just a few weeks ago, that I could ever do this again. And yeah, it's a bit overwhelming, just being in this imposing valley, all the mountains around and nobody else. What a privilege it is to be able to do things like this. Splash through the mud and the muck and the rocks and down this beautiful valley up to an even more beautiful place called Lake Tennyson, which is at the base of these amazing mountains, and it's just amazing scenery as you sit there at the edge of the lake. It was emotional for me because this was kind of the spots that reminded me of my grandfather, and as the further we rode down and the weather got worse, and it seemed like everything telling me to turn around and you're not supposed to be here. But my grandfather, he would have never given up at anything like that. So I said, well, I'm not going to either. Kind of sat at the entrance to Lake Tennyson and looked back down the valley, and it was one of those moments I just knew I could feel, you know, my grandfather was looking down and going, yeah, I'd really like it here. And yeah, it was a nice moment. I really wanted to connect with him, emulate the trips that he had had, and the cool places he'd probably gone on his Harley Davidson. And I think he would have been all for it. Probably even back in the 40s, he would have rode that old Harley up that valley, no problem. Yeah, I was tearing up a bit, but it was a really happy experience. It wasn't sad at all. I'll never forget that kind of a ride out there in the arrival, because the only things flinching were me and my abilities as a human, and the bike just didn't care. It just kept going. It was riding over the wet rocks and the shale and then the dirt and the potholes, and it didn't care. It was happy to be there, and whatever got thrown at us, it just didn't mind. It was nice to have that confidence there with the lack of confidence in some spots with myself and my riding ability. Mother Nature seemed to not want us there that day. The wind was staggering. It was blowing so hard. You know, the film crew was trying to hold all my gear down just so I could eat a sandwich in the wind and just try to make that work. You just got that feeling that the weather was so hostile, it was time to go. So you know, loaded up again and kind of back down the same valley, but it just gives you a different perspective as you ride down. And again, the bike was just the ride was amazing. It was stable, the suspension was good. The engine at low speeds on the really technical stuff was so nice and easy to use. It was quite surprising how well it did, especially for a bike, you know, the first of its kind. A little bit about my wife. Such an intelligent, interesting, full of life person, which is why I fell in love with her. She was actually born here in New Zealand and grew up on the Sunshine Coast in Australia. And she's got these amazing stories of all the places she's lived and worked and the jobs she's done. She was an air hostess when we met in Dubai and worked her way up to the top of that field. As she does in every job she goes into, she just gives it her 100%. And even in life, everything she does, it's 100% or nothing. We click, and she's such a ray of sunshine. I think one of her nicknames that she has from her friends is Sammy Sunshine, and she's always been that positive driving force in my life since we've met. Yeah. So her support has been unbelievable. She's the sole breadwinner for our family now. She has done amazing things to get us as a family financially and emotionally in a good space. She's leading the way with getting me into alternative treatments, and she's just there. She has a lot of weight on her shoulders. There's a lot of things I can't do. She takes the brunt of it when I have a bad day. If I'm not able to pull my weight as a member of the family, she's the one that has to pick up the slack. So, unfortunately, she doesn't get a lot of time to maybe take care of her emotional status and address, the seriousness of the situation, because she's so busy taking care of all of us. So, I worry about that a little bit, but, to sum it up, she's the rock that holds this whole operation together, and without her, I'd be lost. Bike's getting a thorough test on the Pan America. So at the end of this ride, there's a little bit called Jolly's Pass, and I really wanted to go through that because it's a little bit more rugged, a little bit rougher, and there's a bit of a small stream crossing that I really wanted to do as well, because I love stream crossings. Yeah, the water crossing. We arrived at that stream, and I actually got extremely nervous for a minute. I stared at this water for a little bit, and I was just thinking, I have to do this. I have to go through this. I have to prove to myself that this can be done still with my condition. I haven't done this for a while, guys. trusting the bike and trusting myself. Splashed through that crossing, no troubles at all. It was great. I was whooping and hollering coming out the other side. I was so happy and relieved. Yeehaw! And off we went down this rocky trail and kind of a steep descent back into town. And that day, I think that was probably the day I was most proud of. Just being out there, being off-road and doing that style of riding, which is absolutely my favorite style and place to be, is in the dirt. And the bike just eating everything up. It was just such a pleasurable day, even though the weather was just against us and the wind and the rain, and made for a unique experience. I'll treasure. Yeah, you're a sight for sore eyes. What a day, babe, what a day. Sam came on this trip just to be there in support of me and help me out and make sure I'm okay. But a nice little side effect of that is when I'm done and at the end of the day and I'm so tired, usually I'm in a hotel room by myself, and I have to wait to tell those stories, or I have to wait to communicate with someone, and it's a bit, it can be a bit lonely. With Sam and Ace along with the trip, I get back to the room and I've got all that love and all of that emotional support right there every day. So it's just, it's a wonderful thing. I love it. And I'd like to have them on every trip if I could. Just, even if they don't come along with me at the trip, just meet me at the hotel every night. So I've got my family around me.
Mike is probably the most genuine, loving and generous person that I've ever met. He's not only generous with his time, with his money, with his spirit. It was even in our wedding vows, I was just shocked by how much he gives of himself, and particularly just to Ace and myself, nothing is too much trouble.
We met online and we went on our first date, and I remember when she walked in, it was later on, I was coming up with a word on what my thoughts were when I first saw her, and I think it was ethereal. She walked in with this beautiful blonde hair and this smile that was just infectious. And I think I was like, yeah, I'm done. This is it. That's a good one. I can tell.
Yeah, I was far more skeptical. I had very low expectations. I walked in and I'm like, okay, well, he looks pretty normal. That's a good start. And
handsome, though, very handsome.
Very handsome.
And we closed the place down. We stayed until they kicked us out. And so I gave her a ride home. I had a car that would probably be more associated with somebody a little more douchey than I actually was. But it was a beautiful sports car. When she saw it, she was like, oh, okay. And I'm like, no, I'm really I'm a normal guy. It's okay. I just like cars. And so I gave her a ride home. And when I dropped her off, I was kind of like, so when will we talk again? And she's like,
I've got your number. I'll call you. Don't call me.
And as I drove away, I'm like, oh, no, she's not going to contact me. I think I've just been blown off. And so I'm cruising down the highway and I hear this ding ding, and I look at my phone, and it was a text message from Sam. And at that point I was elated. Now I have her number, we can communicate, that's great. Because before that I didn't have her phone number, and the only way to communicate was through the online platform, which I think you had...
He was disconnecting the next day.
Yeah, you were cancelling your membership the next day. So yeah, I was pretty happy to get that little nugget of information that was valuable at that point.
And I guess I kind of knew from then and gave him a nugget. To give you a background of our personality types, from the beginning of time, Mike has always been a planner and organizing things down to the very finest detail. I've always been much more fly by the seat of my pants, work out where I'm going when I get there. I'll work out how to get from the airport to where I'm going when I get there, and maybe not even decide where I'm going until I get to the airport. So our very first trip together, it was a friend of ours' wedding,
Italy,
and I had done the planning, which there was none, and so we got to a train station.
Funny enough, the story of our first fight. Same story.
Same story. We got on a train and Mike was like, but how do you know it's going in the right direction? How do you know this is the right train? And I'm like, I just know. God, relax. Go and get a beer or something. He goes, but how do we know when it's gonna leave? And so, short story, we ended up in a very big fight and we were like, oh my God, how could we go on? But we kind of agreed to meet each other halfway, and so I planned a little bit more, and Mike planned a little bit less.
Yeah.
And I think we've done that ever since.
I think it was years later. It was after we left Dubai when we did our round the world trip, traveling through Europe, and we got to Spain. And what we would do is we'd stay a week or two in each spot. She would pick one stay and I would pick the other, and that included doing the bookings, hotel and all of that. And I think that kind of did that same sort of thing, just let each other let go and just trust and go and have fun. So Sam books this place out in the Sierra Nevada, in a place called Guadi, and it's all these cave houses built into the rock. It's surreal almost. You go there and it's like, how does the world not know about this? It's quite a cool place. The other thing is it's also quite remote and a little bit backwoods, let's say. Deliverance vibe when you get there.
Yeah, I think the hills have eyes.
So we got there and I was like, Sam, what did you do? I'm like, not again, this just going with it. But that said, it was one of the most memorable things just because it was so weird and interesting. and we went and did a bit of off-roading. It's okay to say now because the rental car has given us our deposit back. Did a little off-roading in something that shouldn't have been. We ended up going along these cliff sides, and there were these little huts built into the sides of the cliff. And there's like dogs barking, and I swear we drove into some drug dealer's compound. But that was one of those things where we ended up kind of having this wonderful non-planned experience. It's because the adversity made the experience.
Yeah.
Like when I go somewhere, I like to plan everything and go where it's all refined and I know exactly what I'm getting into. But that was fun because we had no idea.
You're welcome.
Yeah. I learned.
A year or two ago, we were like wondering if he could ever ride again. And, there's been days where he could not get out of bed or couldn't walk to the kitchen. So to see him out here doing this is like outrageous. It's amazing. I think anybody else in this situation, I think it's super important just to really focus on the next 24 hours or even 12 hours and what you can control, and don't think beyond that because it's like a vacuum and you might not get out. Give me a second.
Day 4 is the final day of the ride. After that big day, kind of off-road the day before, I was still feeling pretty good. I woke up and I'm ready to go, and I was just excited to get back on the bike. It's just such a pleasant place to be on that bike, even with the stiffness and the pain in my hip. You just kind of forget that when you jump on. So the plan that day is to make it all the way home back to Blenheim. First, we rode up towards a place called Lewis Pass. Such a beautiful place to ride, and I just wanted to share that with everyone because it's just this amazing, beautiful, windy road through this thick forest and kind of rainforest type atmosphere. And it was finally a dry day, so it wasn't raining. We had a bit of sun, and it gave me a chance to really get the feel for the bike on a dry road and see what it can really do. And man, it didn't disappoint. Such an awesome time, and even doing the filming, having to repeat the corners a couple of times was actually a bit of a treat, because when you're normal riding, you pass by something once and that's it. Doing this, I got to ride on these corners a couple of times. It's a road that was just so much fun to be on. Riding motorcycles for me, it's freedom. And I know it's a bit of a cliche. A lot of motorcyclists, that's the first thing they say, but it's true. It's something that gives you the ability to control your destiny. It's dangerous if you stop quickly or fall off, so you're completely in control of your own health and safety. It's a freeing thing. You have to have all of your focus on what you're doing as you're riding, so it helps you kind of let go of the day-to-day stresses and the day-to-day worries. And it's been particularly helpful for me because I do have, it feels like the weight of the world on me on some days. Having the ability to get on a motorcycle, kind of go where the wind takes you, it's an experience that refreshes your soul. And And again, it's one of those things to non-riders, they hear you say things like that and they think, well, it's a bit dramatic, but it's really not. Once you do it and you understand it, it's something that you just can't get out of your blood. It's a mechanism to take you where you need to go physically, spiritually, mentally. It's healing. It's a healing force for me in my life at this point. I think when people in my situation, when you get that news or that bad news about your life, I think that's one of the things that you think of instantly is a legacy. What can I leave behind? What are people going to think of me? Did I make any impact on this planet? For me, I think my legacy is my son. I think that's all you can say. He's my goal would be to leave all of the good things about myself and all of the positive experiences that I've had and the things that I've learned, and leave that with him. And then take all the negativity and my mistakes and things that have held me back in my life, and I'll take that with me. I'll take that bad with me. And then on top of that, I think I'd want to leave a message or a bit of an idea in people's heads that, what I went through wasn't in vain, that I've helped somebody, whether it's through my words, going through this, or through the videos, or through just meeting me and just talking, with people. I hope that I could have changed someone's life in a positive way, and had this experience maybe extend someone's life and encourage them to get checked out and be more in tune with our bodies and what they're doing, rather than just going through life and much like I was, and just kind of ignoring those little tiny cues that your body's trying to tell you something's wrong as you go. So yeah, that's what I'd like to leave, some positive imagery of who I was and what I did for people that I met, or people that know me through what I'm doing now, and then all of my positive efforts into my son, so he can do wonderful things. And as people, we always want the next generation to be better and have things better than we did now. I don't know if the world's going to be better for him than me, but I believe he's going to be a better, stronger person, and hopefully I can contribute to that. It was a full day. It was a day that I would have done when I was completely healthy, and I wouldn't have done more. So it was a full day really testing my stamina and what my body will do. Alright, St. Arnaud, last town before we get home, about an hour and a half away. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to put in a day like this, where it's a decent ride on home plus all the filming. But here we are, we're gonna make it home tonight, sleep in my own bed, say hello to my cat Taco. Pretty excited about that. At that point, I think it was, when I started to really think that, maybe I could do some more of this, because I really love doing that riding and sharing these experiences with people. And that's why I started Dead Man Riding, was to do these types of things. So I'm about 10 minutes from home. Situation report tired. Everything that's kind of got issues with it is of course a bit sore right now. It's been through a lot. Been on the bike since 9 o'clock this morning. It's damn near 7, so that's a pretty good shift for a cancered up old mediocre rider like myself. The bike is amazing. I love it. Don't really want to give it up. It's treated me very well. It got me out of the house and it's brought me back to the house, and it's done it with style and I don't know, just something special that I don't think any other bike could have. It brought a real emotional connection to my journey, and you know, for that I just have to say thank you. I'll have an emotional connection with this bike as long as I live. Oh, looks like we f***ing battery. What's going on here? Still recording? It was a very long day, but being on the bike with the amazing wind protection it has and cruise control and hand warmers, I was as comfortable there as I would have been in the car, so it wasn't fatiguing at all. You know, just got that amazing kind of feeling of accomplishment as I got closer to home, realizing that I'd done something that I honestly, I think in the back of my head, I had some pretty strong doubts that I could make it this far. And as I got about a block away from home, I just broke down into tears. I was crying in my helmet. And I pulled up to my garage and I put the kickstand down and I just kind of collapsed beside the bike.
I did it.